HSBC's New Frontier Fund was, in fact, up 71% this year over the past 12 months. Joining us now is Senior Portfolio Manager of that fund, Andrea Nannini. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon from London. Andre, tell me, what was your best performing market of this fund that we just mentioned?
Well, I think it's been a very good 12 months, and I think we've seen strength across the board throughout sort of the entire spectrum. I think we had good performance from a lot of markets in the Middle East recently. I think since the beginning of the year, particularly Nigeria has been a very strong performer after having had a very weak 2008 and 2009. But still, we think that there's still a lot of performance to be gained from these markets, because they are still trading significantly below the levels they were trading at before the Lehman Brothers bankruptcy and so on. Whereas emerging markets, the larger markets like BRIC, have pretty much now recovered all the lost ground from 2008.
Well, whenever you talk about Nigeria, the question comes up about how leveraged they are to the price of oil. Now that you've got oil in the $70 range, but you have concern about further slowdowns in Europe, it's got to cause some concern in terms of lessened demand for their commodity. Is the run-up done?
I mean, definitely. I think oil price is important for Nigeria, for a lot of African countries, and for a lot of Middle Eastern countries. But I think, interestingly, if one looks at what is driving GDP growth in Nigeria and many other frontier markets that are big commodity producers, is actually not the oil sector, but it's typically, the consumer sector, the infrastructure sector, the investments and so on. So although oil price matters for perception, often is not really the main driver of growth. But obviously, with high oil prices, that helps both risk perception and the sort of the liquidity of the markets.
You like a market that's pretty hard to tap into for the average investor. You like Saudi Arabia. How are you buying into the market there?
Well, Saudi Arabia, up until 2 years ago, was basically almost impossible to access for foreign investors. However, in the last 24 months, they've made a number of sort of partially opening up. So today it is possible to access the market through total return swaps and other sort of synthetic assets products like P-notes. So the market is becoming more and more open, and we think over the next 1 to 2 years they'll probably take further steps towards a further liberalization of the stock market, which we think will really put Saudi Arabia and the Middle East on the screen on the radar screen for a lot of global investors.
Now, we haven't seen total resolution of the debt issues that were plaguing Dubai. Perhaps this month, some say we could see further, addressing of that issue. But you actually are seeing opportunities in the UAE now.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, sort of the debt resolution is still the key issue for the UAE and for Dubai in particular. And I think, as long as we don't have 100% clarity on that, the markets will still remain reasonably subdued. But we do think that as a consequence of the sell-off in late 2008 and sort of the weak performance last year, there's a lot of value to be found in a lot of stocks in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. It's just a matter of the confidence and the visibility returning. And I think once we get the restructuring deal in place, that'll probably be the trigger for better market performance in that part of the world.
But that's a pretty big detail to get. What stocks do you feel comfortable, or what sectors would you feel comfortable buying into there, given that they still have real pressure on the real estate sector?
Yeah, I think the real estate sector is still sort of an area where we have concerns. And however, there are a number of stocks, outside sort of the real estate sector which we think are interesting. Also, we think that within the financial space, especially the banks in the neighboring emirate of Abu Dhabi, offer very good value. There's a number of very well-run, managed banks.
Got any names for me there?
Well, I think if I were to mention a couple of names which we think could do well, one would definitely be National Bank of Abu Dhabi, which is one of the largest banks in Abu Dhabi. And I think also DP World is an interesting name to look at, which is one of the largest ports operators globally based in Dubai.
All right, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.